I'm Pamela Portnoy, and no one's okay. Welcome back to No One's Okay. I am back. This is going to be second time's a charm because I already did this intro and we're just doing it. We're doing it live. Welcome back. I am here today with the amazing Patrick A. Jackson. He is an actor. He is an improv master. He is a teaching artist. He is a newly licensed minister. And he was my neighbor for a very brief period in time when we were abroad studying Shakespeare. Patrick, hi. Welcome again.
Hey. Again, welcome again.
Welcome again.
It's all right. Second time's the best.
Thank you for your amazing, amazing patience. How are you? Welcome. And yeah, how are you? We'll start with that. How are you today?
I would say I'm okay, but no one's okay.
No,
See
you're
what
not.
I did there?
You're excellent. That is the perfect answer. Tell our listeners about your journey.
Yeah, so when I think about today, all the way back to the beginning, I started like most creatives. I was always into something. I think my earliest memory of being on stage, I played Joseph in my Catholic school's nativity play.
Awesome.
It was a big scandal because I was the only black kid in the school.
Wow.
So they were like, "Ooh, a black Joseph." And that started my trajectory of snatching people's wigs. Anyway,
snatching people's wigs.
Yes, snatching people's wigs. They were just not ready for any of my performance, just antics on stage.
Love it. Love it.
So I started at a young age performing, and in high school, I was in marching band and all the band programs, actually. And I was also in theater. And I think the biggest part of that step in the journey was my junior year of high school. The football team went to the playoffs, and nobody could have predicted that. I was in A Midsummer Night's Dream. I was playing Puck. And in high school, you don't have understudies. Like, who thinks to have an understudy for a high school production? Mm-hmm. And so we went to the playoffs, and I was also drum major in the band. The other drum major had the flu, so there was no drum major at the football game because we were opening Midsummer Night's Dream. So I was on stage.
Wow. Okay, can I ask you, side note, how many times have you been in A Midsummer Night's Dream? Just ballpark.
5 times.
Yeah, I figured. I counted at least 3 with this story, but wow, amazing. Okay.
Yeah. I played Puck 4 times, and then I was just recently in a production of Midsummer before the pandemic started, where I played Lysander. So I was very happy to not play Puck.
Oh, that's exciting. That's Lysander is Hermia's or Helena's boyfriend. I forgot. Hermia's boyfriend. Wonderful. Okay, cool. So
I was in high school, and I had that battle, and the battle continued like through college. So I was in band, and I was a theater major in college, and I actually went to school through a band scholarship. So I had to stay in band, even though my major was theater. And I still had the same conflicts. I never could be in any plays that were in the fall semester during marching band season. And I remember my senior year, we were doing a production of Fences by August Wilson. I really wanted to be in the play. It was one of my dream plays to be in. And so I told the band director at the time, I was like, "Hey, I'm going to be in this show. I will only miss 2 football games out of the season. I can make it to every rehearsal. I may have to leave a little early to go to play rehearsal, but I'll only miss 2 games." He was like, "Yeah, sure." So I missed the first game, and he kicked me out of the band.
What? Mm-hmm. You really? That was only 2 occasions. Oh my goodness. Okay, that sucks.
He was a dick.
Yeah, that fucking sucks. Especially someone as dedicated as you.
It's all good. It happens.
Okay. Yeah.
So I would say from there, I moved into the professional world, and fast forward, while I was in college, I had the chance to go across the pond, and that's where we met, in Merrifield, England. And that was actually a big part of my journey. That really exposed me to traveling to do theater, to a lot of different artists. I mean, there were students from all across the country and the world there. So it was so cool. And we had that unique experience with several professional actors like Fiona Shaw and Alan Rickman. And that was so great. And it really, showed me that there was more to it than just being on stage or being in front of the camera, that I could be like a working artist. And so that shifted my trajectory actually. And so when I got back and I graduated from Morehouse, I started to look for apprenticeships. And that took me to Florida, where I went to Florida Studio Theater I thought I was going to spend just 9 months and then move to Chicago and become a professional improviser and a sketch writer. And I'm still in Florida to this day. I moved here in 2011 and I've been here since.
Amazing. You never know where these paths take you at the end. That's so cool. Um, I know there's plenty more that you probably wanted to mention, but I did. My next question will be about Florida Studio Theater. So,
Please.
okay, so I saw you on this. I believe PBS produced it, correct?
Yeah.
PBS produced this amazing piece on the Florida Studio Theater, and where you were talking about your work in improv there and how it's particularly changed in the last year. Could you tell me a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so they reached out to, it was a series called Greater Sarasota where they were looking at a variety of arts organizations in Sarasota. And even though I now am a resident of St. Petersburg, Florida, which is about 45 minutes north,
That's a
they
big
still were
commute.
interested in my story as a cast member of Florida Studio Theater Improv. So I went down and we did the series. And they interviewed me kind of the same way this podcast is just talking about my journey, but specifically what had been happening during the pandemic, how I had pivoted. And I remember we were in the interview and I just happened to be like sharing my experiences in Sarasota. For y'all listening and watching, like Sarasota is a lovely beach town that is mostly retirement community. So there's lots of wealthy, rich people, mostly white, who have a lot of disposable income.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I was an intern, I was walking, to rehearsal one day, minding my business. I had my headphones in, listening to whatever I was listening to, and this like truck of like frat boys was like driving down the street, and like they called me the N word, and I remember like hearing it and thinking like, no, like, nah, that's not what they said, but they ended up saying it again before I even could realize it. And that's when I had to realize, Patrick, even though you're out of the South, Florida is technically still the South. It
It's
sucked,
fucking
but
terrible.
it reminded me that even in this magical world of theater, while I have the unique blessing to be able to tell stories, not everyone has that perspective on the outside of it. And so I am a firm believer in continuing to create inclusive spaces.
I love
And
that
that
so
it pissed
much.
me off because
No
I had
shit.
to go on stage.
Yeah. How did you do that? How did you do that?
Good technique.
Yeah.
Like I will be honest with you, like I was like so pissed off. I went into rehearsal and we always do a check in, how's everyone doing? So we go around the circle and I told them like I'm not okay. Like I'm pissed right now. We have to go on stage. I have to do the show. Like I still have to do it because I'm getting paid to do it. But like, please don't put me in any scenes where there's police. Please don't put me in any scenes, that refers to anything culturally about me. Like I just want to go on stage and do just a regular improv show. And I'm grateful that I have a degree and I have some technique because I relied purely on technique. It was external acting the entire show. Like I was not doing anything internal at all.
Yeah. I'm so sorry you had to go through that. That's awful. That's really awful. And you're such a badass for being able to pull through and just like rely on all the hard work that you've done your entire life and, you know, perform. I don't know, like I don't know how I literally just walked in here, okay? And I almost got into a car accident.
Oh
And
wow.
it's like some woman on the car next to me just wasn't looking when she came here, and which was a very like not a big thing to happen. So I can't imagine. And I even told Jason, my producer, I was like, I'm a little shaken because I thought I was gonna die for a second.
Right.
But like for me to just be shaking over like the little stuff, like I can't imagine some. Yeah, you're a pro and you are awesome.
I appreciate that. But I mean like that's our abilities, right? That's why we go to school for theater. And even if you're not like an actor or artist, that's why we have the tools and the skills we have to lean on them
Mm-hmm.
when we're not okay, when we're having a bad day,
Yeah.
because we still have a job to do, we still have a family to take care of, we still have a loved one, to live with. And so, how can we still be there for that person, but also take time internally to process or work through when we're dealing with big, heavy stuff? I mean, had it not been for my training, my therapist, and my church, I probably would not be as even keeled as I am right now with everything that went on during like the height of the pandemic. We're kind of coming out of it and moving through it. But when we were like deep in it, I was like, holy fuck.
Same here. I was really really struggling around July, August particularly. I was just, I live alone, and I was just having panic attacks like almost every night before bed, and I think if it wasn't for therapy and all the things, my support system with my friends and my family, like I'm just very lucky to have that stuff.
Oh yeah,
And
I'm
that's
an
amazing.
advocate for therapy. Like, go to therapy.
100%. I think everyone on earth would benefit from it. I mean, everyone needs a sounding board sometimes. We all are living this human experience that is super complicated. It's helpful. It's very
Hmm.
helpful. And it's a shame that there's like a stigma behind it a little bit still
Yeah,
in
and across
2021.
various communities too. Like I'm. You mentioned I just recently was licensed as a minister, and a lot of faith-based communities believe like all you need is God. And while I love God and I love the spiritual side of myself, and that is a part of me that helps me stay grounded, I also like have to recognize that I'm human too. So I need
Hmm.
to balance out the human side, and I need someone to be like, wow, okay, how do you feel about this thing that you just rambled on for about 30 minutes? Like, how do you feel about that? Let's talk about these things. Or, Patrick, have you noticed that you do XYZ when this happens in your life? I need somebody that can like point out my blind spots because I'm
Yeah.
trying to heal and work through shit.
And also, I don't know. I know I'm probably not going to say this eloquently, so maybe you can help me. But I feel like actors, because the instrument we use is like head to toe, heart, mind, body, all the things, not just like mental, like recalling knowledge. It's all the things we're using, all our tools. I feel like it's all the more important to like figure out what makes you tick, what makes you upset, what makes you happy, how to kind of regulate when you're not at center, whatever at center means, you know? Um,
Exactly.
yeah, I just think that's really interesting. And wow, badass. You're badass. Amazing. So,
So that was a series.
that was the what?
That was a series. That was what it entailed. Just kind of talking about Sarasota and my journey in Sarasota, a piece of the racism I experienced, but then overall, just my joys of being an improviser in Sarasota, and it really like I have to say, it made me look super cool because I've never really like participated in a film like documentary style project. So I was just amazed at like the equipment, and I was like, oh, this is gonna be cool. You shoot something like it's gonna be nice. I'll have it for a reel or something. And then I got the package, and I was like, this makes me look like really fancy smancy. Now I'm not like downplaying my life. I'm a cool person,
You
but I was
are
like,
super cool.
that package is badass. I was like, I have to keep this
It is
forever.
super badass. And honestly, I'm not going to lie to you. I showed it to my former co host when we were still working together. And I was like, look at the lighting behind Patrick. Look at it. And so I was
It's
like, we
good.
need some sort of lighting for our sign. And it was all because I saw that package and I was like, oh my God, it looks amazing. That's really
Shout out
cool.
to who was the producer on that? Laura Landry. That was the producer on that. Yeah.
Shout out. Well done. That was a really cool segment. And I think it highlighted the importance of laughter, and especially during, times like we've had in the last year and a half. What do you think makes improv and comedy so powerful?
I think it is the only art form where you can be truthful, and the truth can be really messy and a little bit offensive sometimes. But we can still, through that truth, see someone's humanity.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's comics out there who they have said some jokes, and I'm like, whoa, that is not a joke that Patrick agrees with. Um, but it incites a feeling in me that makes me want to have a conversation.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, the when the pandemic hit, I was in New York City. I had my first time visiting New York as a grown adult, um, and we went to a Times Square comedy show, and most of the comics were pretty okay. And this one guy went up there, and I was like, "Oof, Lord, this is trash." It was just it was very misogynistic, and I was like, "All right, okay, sex jokes, dick jokes, cool." Um, but at the same time, I was like, "This is still good art,
Mm-hmm.
right?" He took some time to work on this, and while they may not be great jokes or the wittiest jokes, I still have to recognize his humanity in that. And it made me think. It made me know this is not comedy I want to see again. It
Mm-hmm.
made me recognize the types of comics that I actually enjoy listening to. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm grateful for it, even with the shitty jokes.
100%. I think that if people don't like the jokes, um, they should still recognize that they are jokes, and you don't have to listen. You know, I think I think it was Dave Chappelle that said something like, "This is that stand up was one of the last um, like forums where you could just say whatever you want." And I do think that, there is a certain responsibility that you have when you're in the public eye, but at the same time, it is comedy. And if we're starting to censor jokes all the time, I think that's a kind of a dangerous game to play. I do think that people should take the responsibility on themselves and understand that there's a weight to words for sure. But I don't know. How do you feel about that?
That's a great question because I have a part of me that is more like the arts admin and like the teaching artist is like, create inclusive spaces and equity and diversity. And let me be clear, I'm an advocate for those things. I desire all spaces to be equitable and diverse and inclusive. But I also recognize that on the comedic side of me, there's just sometimes like some jokes that are like really funny and I'll still laugh at. Do I think those groups that maybe the jokes are about operate in that function all the time? No, I know that they don't. I know that the jokes that are specifically about the ways I identify as a black like queer man, like the jokes that are out there, that's not my truth or my life. But some of them are still funny, even when they're making fun of myself. So I can recognize, like you said, the humor in it, and not take it to heart. And I know when the comic has crossed the line.
Mm-hmm.
So when you get into jokes like that, what we call in the improv world blue humor, when you get into jokes like that and the audience starts to laugh, right? You said when we're laughing, you keep on going. The
Mm-hmm.
laughter becomes like light, and then it gets to like a polite, more of a pity laughter. That's when you need to stop and move on to your next bit, because then we're like, okay, we got it. You said it. It was funny. We're not gonna go too deep into it.
Right. And there's also like a turning point. I listen to Sarah Silverman's podcast, and I feel like there's she mentioned this all the time, that there's like a turning point, that once you say the joke to an audience, you have no control over how they're going to interpret it. You could have every best intention, but sometimes, you don't know what the audience, like what experience they're bringing in to listening to you. And so they can interpret it in a way that you really didn't mean. And sometimes those interpretations are very inappropriate and very not what the comic meant, you know? Because at the end of the day, they
Intention,
are jokes.
intention. Yeah, I was gonna say intention versus impact.
Yeah.
Like that. Like I can have the best intentions, but the joke could land in a way that I was not expecting, and it's like, oh shit, I need to be prepared for the optics of this. I need to call my manager and be like, hey, I said some shit, so like just be ready for it. I will apologize and like recognize that the tone of it landed the wrong way. But like if you're writing stuff that is edgy, just be ready to have conversation about it. Not necessarily to defend yourself, just have a conversation.
Absolutely. I think that's wonderful. Have you had any particular experience with that before?
Hmm. Not off the top of my head. I mean, I'm sure I've said some things on stage that were not cool. I definitely have grown in my improv.
Mm-hmm.
So even the characters that I try to play from the top of my intelligence and not a stereotype. There were times when I would play gay characters on stage, and I would lean really really hard into the stock of like super effeminate and yeah, I was just like a Jack McFarlane from Will and Grace,
Mm-hmm.
right? I would lean into that all the way. Now, as a gay man, I have moments where I queen out and I'm yes mamming and girling and snapping and carrying on. But that's not my 24/7.
Mm-hmm.
I also have gay friends that is their 24/7.
Yeah.
But I knew that if I am going to be on stage, I also have a responsibility to show the different flavors of that community as much as I can in whatever ways I have access to that, and not just play one note because that would not be fair to anybody in the community.
I think that's wonderful because I can tell just, I haven't seen you in a very long time, but I do remember that you are a very, very thoughtful artist in everything that you do. Um, and I think that that is so important, and it really shows. It really does. Um,
Thank you.
you're so welcome. How would you say your perspective has changed over the last year after we've been through
Wow.
this?
Hmm. You know, I think the biggest thing that happened, I was fortunate to go to a historically black college. Morehouse College is it's an all black, all male university or college actually, not a university, and so I have like a really rich appreciation for my culture and the wide varying ways in which we occupy the world as black people. And so I was very aware about like protests and like was really into Black Lives Matter when things really started moving with Trayvon Martin and some of the earlier cases. And so when things happened with George Floyd, it was a different type of disappointment and anger. I was still angry, I was still frustrated, I was still disappointed, but I had gotten to a point in my life where I knew that me using my anger just to kind of rage the machine was not what I was called to do now, right? That's how my perspective has shifted. In fact, I remember, when the protests, when he was killed, when the protests happened, and when everyone, all the theaters across the country started releasing their statements and carrying on. There was an actor who was working with my theater at the time, and we have like a friendship. And he called me and he was like, Patrick, I just need to kind of like vent, and he was really upset. And I realized at that point I had grown, right? Because I was listening to him and he sounded like me when I found out that Trayvon Martin had been killed, right? And that
Mm-hmm.
verdict came down and Zimmerman didn't really get punished and all these things. And I remember viscerally, excuse me, feeling like that. And I knew at that point I had shifted in my journey to now being not an elder, but maybe a big brother, if you will. And so I said, hey, I know that you're angry. And this is where my favorite quote in the world, Dr. Maya Angelou, she says, you should be angry. You must not be bitter. Bitterness is like a cancer. It does nothing to the object of its displeasure, but eat upon the host. So you use that anger. And the quote goes on.
That's
But
beautiful.
I basically told him that. I said, use the anger to do something. Your anger is a sign that something is wrong and that you have something inside of you to fix the problem.
Mm-hmm.
And so I now my perspective has shifted to being someone that supports change and having conversations, motivating action within the smaller communities. Because me just screaming at the top of my lungs. This is no shade to anyone that does this, but me screaming at the top of my lungs or just getting on, my Twitter or my Facebook or my Instagram feeds and talking about this is some advocacy. But I also can do some great things within my smaller communities, within the theater communities I occupy here in St. Petersburg. Just talking to my peers about like their experiences and how they're engaging in conversations. That elicits change. Maybe not big, huge strokes of it, but I feel like those tiny little chisel chippings also help
Mm-hmm.
to dismantle everything too.
Do you also channel? I think listening is one of the most powerful. I think it's a superpower, honestly, and I think everyone needs to get better at listening. So I love
Yes.
that point. I'm also curious. Do you throw your anger into your work? Do you dive
Oh.
deeper into like your writing and your comedy? Like how do you kind of engage with that?
Uh, I was so like full disclosure, and people know this publicly. So about 10 years ago, um, I was diagnosed with HIV, and I a little bit more, a little bit over 10 years ago. Yeah, 2011. Yes, 10 years as of January. I can't do math. That's why I'm an actor. Um, so I was diagnosed with HIV, and I was like angry. I was very, very angry about it. I was angry at myself and the world and the person that I had gotten infected from. And I didn't know what to do with my anger, so I just wrote. I started journaling,
Yeah.
and like pages and Pam, I'm talking pages and pages. This is before we had iPhones to like write notes on. So I was just like writing, 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 writing.
It
Um,
was just pouring out of you.
yeah, it was just coming out. I mean, there were days when it was like tear stained pages. It was days where it was just scratches and ripped pages. But from that, I wrote an entire play from that one experience. It's a play called Red Plus, and it ended up having a few reading performances and one small produced performance.
That's
Um,
wonderful. Where did it go up?
it went up at the DC Black Theater Festival back in 2013. And it was
That's
loosely
amazing.
based on my actual journey. And I also, in my journey of kind of grieving through, of just living with HIV, I found out that some of my peers and close friends were also living with the virus. And I asked them with their permission, hey, I would love to use bits and pieces of your story if you feel comfortable. And we sat down and I created some characters based off of their stories too. And from writing that play, I healed a lot of that anger. So it's easy for me to talk about, my entire story that's connected to my to the virus and how I'm living with it and things like that. But I had to go through that anger and use it,
Yeah.
or I would still be bitter.
100%. Wow. I'm sorry that that happened to you, and yeah, I imagine that that was really, 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 really hard. And I just think that I really admire that you were able to channel that and in such a particularly healthy way, and in a way that legitimately helps others too, because it's an experience. It's so interesting because you're so brave to talk about it. I think it's amazing that you're talking about it, because when we stigmatize things like this that everyone goes through, everyone's going to feel more alone. And I think what you did by sharing your story, it brings people together and makes people feel less alone. And I really commend you for that. That's amazing.
Thank you. Thank you. I have to, I believe that the only way I can impact the world is by being myself. I can't,
No one
and
else
it
can
took
do
me a
that
while to
for
get
you.
there. No one else, right? I'm the only person that could be Patrick A. Jackson. You're the only person that could be Pamela Portnoy. Like that's it.
Yeah.
No one else can do that. Even if someone, even like my dad also is Patrick Jackson, but he's a different Patrick Jackson,
Yeah.
right? So, we can only be ourselves. And as actors, we go through the journey of what's my type, who am I, all that stuff, as any actor should. But once you figure that out, do you the best way that you can do you. And I promise you'll get booked more. If you just stay doing yourself, you will get booked more.
Yeah, because if you're trying to be an idea that you think that, the project is looking for, someone else is probably already that person. You got to bring the parts of you that you relate to the most, as far as the breakdown or the character, because no one else can do that. Ugh, way to bring it around to acting. Wow, amazing. I want to hear, you have a podcast too,
Yes.
Black Hand Side
Yeah.
podcast. Tell me about it.
So it was like many people. I was looking for something to do during the pandemic, and
Because you weren't
selfishly,
doing
I
enough
was.
things? I feel
uh,
like you do everything. Continue.
I will say this: I stay busy to stay out of trouble. Okay, like if I was not busy, I would be doing things I have no business doing. So grateful to stay busy, healthily busy.
Amazing.
But the Black Inside was birthed out of my desire to stay connected to people I refer to as my village. I realized I had a mental health like situation maybe like 2.5 years ago, and I realized that I'm so distant from a lot of my good friends, some of my fraternity brothers, most of my family. I have some distant family here in Florida, but in terms of people that like know me as Patrick fully, they don't live here. I have to get on a plane to see them. And
That's
so
hard.
I started the podcast because I was stuck at home and even more isolated. So I was like, I need something to, one, on the creative side, keep me going. And two, I've been trying to do a podcast for like 5 years. And I was like, I might as well do it now. And so coming up on a year in August
Congratulations.
will be a year. It's been a journey. I am only producing everything by myself. So I wish I had a fabulous producer like Jason. Shout out to Jason.
Hi, Jason.
Uh, so it's been fun just learning uh, like how to produce and edit things and just navigating hosting and learning and interviewing so many of my friends about what they do. I'm always intrigued by people that aren't actors. Like I'm like, tell me about your job. Like that is you're an accountant? That's amazing. Please tell me more.
I think that's one of the wonderful things about being an actor is that you get to really actually just dive into someone else's life completely. Like you get to be a doctor for however long the project is. You get to be an accountant. You get to do all those things. And so yeah, learning about them is fascinating. Did you learn things about your friends that you didn't know before?
Definitely, we did an episode. I did an episode called "Teach the Children," and I brought in three of my friends who work in education in varying ways. Like one is on like the administrative level, one works with students with varying disabilities, and one is like a high school, like 12th, 11th, 12th grade English teacher. And I knew that they all worked in education, but to hear their experiences at the time, peak pandemic, they had just returned to school because we did that episode in September last year. And them trying to figure out how they were navigating returning to school at that point. It was heartbreaking to hear like what their different school systems were and were not doing, how they were dealing with parents, how they were dealing with students. And one of actually two of my friends that were on the episode are not only educators, but they're also parents.
Mm-hmm.
So it was very interesting to hear the double sided perspective. Sorry, my cat just did something.
What's your
Um,
cat's name? What's your cat's name?
my cat's name is T'Challa.
Nice.
He just does what he wants to do. Anyway, but I learned so much about what they were dealing with, and it made me. You always appreciate what your friends do when they share a little bit about their lives, but to have a podcast and have more time to like truly just like you said listen and just sit there and just like be amazed by the amazing things that they do,
Yeah.
and how they were navigating through that really made me appreciate their craft even more.
100%. I think about that sometimes, because your friends are people that you kind of know in a particular way and you have a certain relationship to, but every person is an entire world. And so getting the opportunity to like talk to them about things that you don't normally, the sides that you don't see of them, it's eye-opening. And most of the time it's so impressive.
Absolutely. I've had friends on some just like you I haven't like physically seen or talked to in a very long time. Like in like intimate conversations, we talk on social media, we like each other's posts and things like that. A comment here or there, but just sit down and have, a 45-minute hour conversation with them
Yeah.
and just be like, wow. Like you are I think we especially in college we have certain memory frames of who someone was
Mm-hmm.
based on those experiences that we had. And just like I've changed and grown, you've changed and grown, but I haven't seen that journey.
Right.
So for me to sit back and hear it and see in the conversation how you've grown and changed is just so impressive to me. So every time I talk to someone, I'm like, this is amazing. Like to just see how you've grown and your journey and to hear it, to see it, and to see you thriving in whatever ways they're thriving is truly amazing.
That's wonderful. And I love that bit about how a big reason why you started this was because you miss them. And I just think that that's so beautiful. That's
It's like, let's
fucking
just talk.
awesome. That's like that's one of my favorite things about it too. Because I haven't seen you in 11 years and I'm just like drinking you in. Like you're amazing. Ah, so
And we were
cool.
babies.
We were so young. So young. I think I had just turned 21 when we did that. And wow, totally different lifetime. But one of my most treasured memories that summer was for sure.
Such fun. Such fun.
Yeah. Do you have a particular theater performance that you have seen or a particular film that you've seen in your life that kind of shaped or like really had a profound impact on who you are as a person or on your artistry?
The first thing that comes to mind, and I say this because at the core of me as an improviser or actor, I know that I'm a character based actor. Um, Mrs. Doubtfire, and everyone
Robin
says Robin Williams, but there's
Williams.
something about Mrs. Doubtfire and that movie, and just like it just blew me away as a kid, just like sitting there watching him. He literally turned into an entirely different person,
He
and it just
sparkled.
blew my mind.
Yeah.
It blew my mind.
Yeah. Yeah, he was amazing. He's absolutely one of my favorites. Ugh, that's such a good answer. I love that. Ugh. Are there any? I remember you mentioned Fences. What really like did you love about Fences that you felt like you needed to dive into it?
It's the first in the August Wilson cycle. Um, I just had a bottom moment. Okay, I can say this now because it's been 11 years.
Okay.
We we had an audition class and we had to do our monologues.
Uh.
And after we did our monologues, I can't remember the professor's name, which is great. But the professor like gave us references. Now, mind you, I had already been in college I was a sophomore. Yeah, I've been in college for a year and a half at that point. So I knew some things.
Yeah.
So she was giving everybody else references and like scripts to look up, and I was like, wow, this is so cool. I can't wait to hear like what she's gonna like tell me to look up. And she was like, have you ever heard of August Wilson? And I was like, yes, I have. Thank you so much. Like I was just like, that's all you have?
So you
Like,
got
I was so
no
mad.
like new information.
Yeah,
That's
she
a
didn't give me
bummer.
anything there.
That's a bummer. I'm sorry.
Anyway,
Yeah.
anyway, back to fences. um, I really like fences. I think because I have my own like randomly estranged relationship with my father,
Mm-hmm.
and so to see Corey and Troy have that relationship, always just like kind of pulls at the heartstrings for me.
Mm-hmm.
And I in like the canon of like things at the time that you could be in as a black actor, I was like, that's a show I need to have, even if it's a collegiate credit. Like I want to say like I've had this experience. And the role I played, Gabe or Gabriel, he only has like three like short little scenes. But for me to play that as a college student, obviously like wasn't playing it at the right age, but it was the first time I had to like pull like on everything I had to kind of access this character that I didn't really know anything about. I didn't know what it was like to live with a mental illness. I didn't know what it was like to have gone to war and possibly, I don't know if he had killed somebody over there. I didn't have those experiences. And these are like heavy experiences.
Mm-hmm.
So I've really had to do like deep actor work at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And it was work. I mean, like vocally, it was work. Emotionally, it was work. And I remember like ending runs, rehearsal runs before we even did like the weekend run of the show for performances. I was just like exhausted, and I was in three small scenes, but that final scene, I just like every time just it took it out of me. But I will remember that. That is one of the roles that I will just remember
Mm-hmm.
forever. And if I get to play it again now that I'm almost into the age bracket, I will gladly do it again.
I bet you will. That's amazing. When you were mentioning how you connect to that piece through your relationship with your dad, I was thinking about my relationship with the play Proof by David
Mm,
Auburn, because my grandfather passed away when I was very young, but we were very close, and he actually had Alzheimer's. So that play with I forgot the main character's name now. Of
ages
course
since
I
I've read
do.
it.
What?
I would say it's been ages since I've read it.
Yeah, it's been a while since I had a thorough read of it, but I also remember Gwyneth Paltrow was in it and Anthony Hopkins. They did the film adaptation, but just Gwyneth Paltrow's character, watching her dad kind of slowly going mentally, it really resonated with me, and that's a play that's always stuck in my head as something that I wanted to throw myself into. So I feel you on that.
Fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed. We're both gonna perform in it. Watch, that's gonna happen.
Yes,
So you're a newly licensed minister.
I am. I
How did
am.
that come about? Congratulations, first of all.
Thank you.
Tell
Thank
me
you.
about what threw you into that direction, and what got you into it.
I grew up in the church. Originally, I was raised Baptist in the Baptist denomination, and then I went to college. And in college, I kind of just backed away from like going to church. I still like prayed and kind of had my own kind of version of my faith or my relationship with God. And then um, I met someone, and he was attending a church here in St. Petersburg, and he invited me to church, and I went, and the preacher that was preaching, Dr. Darrell Arpoli, uh, he was great, and I could not. I was like amazed at the style of his preaching, the messages, the message just content. It was more about life application and taking the scriptures and the biblical things that Jesus might say in a scripture and really spinning it on how you're applying it to your everyday life, and less about like sin consciousness and you're going to hell, and a lot of Bible toting or Bible thumping that our generation like kind of shies away from church from.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, this is great. Like, this is all about like using the Bible and the stories in the Bible to live your best life. I was like, I can do this. So I kept coming to church. And a year into it, I had joined the church, and I had moved up to St. Petersburg by then. And Dr. Pulley sat me down. He's my pastor. He sat me down. And he said, "Are you interested in pursuing ministry and like serving as clergy?" And I'm you're gonna be the first person to hear this, Pam.
I'm excited.
Um,
I'm so excited.
so I have had a knowing that I would be in some form of ministry since I was little.
Really?
But because of some poor examples that I had seen in my life growing up, I was like, no, this isn't for me. I don't wanna be a minister. Like, all they do is ask people for money and do they're not really great moral leaders. I don't want to be involved in that. I can help people heal through other ways. And so I told him that, and he said, you decide with God, like what your ministry will look like, how you serve people. Because at the core of it, a minister is a servant. Just like outside of the church, the minister, we have the prime minister and the minister of whatever in England, and all the parliamentarian and all the stuff. So that is a servant to the people. So biblically, it's the same thing. And so I serve as the minister of media. I oversee all of the media for my church, but I also enjoy media like podcasts and social media, video content, all those things to use as a way to just encourage people to live their best lives. Not necessarily convert them to Christianity and all the craziness some of the other denominations push and force on people, but just like say like, hey, here's a Bible story, here's a scripture, here's how you can apply it to your life. I'm not trying to make you join my church. I'm literally just saying like, I want you to live the best life that you can. Here's some tips.
I love
That's all.
that. I love that. And what I picked up on what you just said, when it came to the service aspect, um, I feel like a lot of people that look at actors think of actors as kind of selfish beings sometimes. Like there's again like a stigma about actors. They're like, oh, they just want to be famous. Oh, they just want to do this. But everything that we have talked about during this podcast has like a theme of healing, of listening, of helping people kind of, I think healing is the big umbrella term that I would like to use, because you're talking about channeling, pain and channeling anger into making people laugh and making people think and making people listen. And I just think you just squashed any sort of assumptions that people may have about actors, because I just feel like you just service and kindness and empathy, it just seeps out of you. And so it's wonderful. I just feel like you're pretty badass. That's awesome.
Thank you. I try, I'm gonna stop saying I'm trying. I work on showing up authentically and being myself, but at the end of the day, just letting people know that even if you're not okay, like it will be okay. And I say this all the time at work. I tell my coworker, I'm like, this is happening. I know you're gonna freak out. You'll be strong, but like truly, like you'll be strong. You're gonna get through it. I know it seems like, whoo, what is going on? The world is spinning out of control. But I have to remind myself on the days where I'm not okay, like it will be okay. I have been through things like this before, or maybe that have been worse or seemingly worse at the moment. And look, I'm still alive. I'm still thriving. I'm not dead. I got a roof over my head. I got clothes on. I got air conditioning. I got internet. I got food. I'm grateful.
That's a beautiful way to look at all of that. Okay, Patrick, I have a segment on this show called Silly Questions to Take Super Seriously.
Yes, let's do it.
All right. You can and they never end up actually being silly, because when you take something seemingly silly seriously, we go deep. So I'm going to limit you to picking one Shakespearean comedy and one Shakespearean drama. What are they? You got to kill all the other ones.
Oh, God. Okay. Tragedy. Tragedy means someone dies, Patrick. Come on. Dust it off. Othello and...
You almost said Hamlet, and then you switched.
I almost said Hamlet, yeah. I was okay. I like them both. I almost said Mackers, too, but the actor in me doesn't want to say that.
I've never heard someone say Mackers, ever.
Yeah.
I just heard the Scottish play, never heard it called that before. I love it. Okay.
So Othello and comedy. I mean, Much Ado is technically a comedy, even though it's not comedic all the time. So Much Ado.
Really? And not Midsummer. You're like, I'm sick of Midsummer.
Oh God, no. I mean, if I ever decide to like be like a full-time teacher, that's probably going to be the first like show that I direct, the first Shakespearean show that I direct, because I know it so well, so I don't have to think too hard about it.
Amazing. You're going to be like our teacher, who I remember would, he knew it so well that he would be watching us and he would be mouthing the words along with us as we were performing, and it was the cutest thing. I'm so like, great. You know this backwards and forwards. That's crazy. All right, when you go to Ben's Cookie, what cookie are you getting?
Double chocolate chip.
Mm-hmm.
Without a doubt. I'm a classic cookie eater, though, so like...
You don't get very adventurous with your cookies. You're like basic.
No, I'm very traditional. I'll do a snickerdoodle if I'm feeling like frisky, but typically oatmeal raisin, double chocolate chip. That's it. That's all I need.
I know we have a few listeners in the UK, so if you guys go to Ben's Cookies, I mean, if you should. If you don't go to Ben's Cookies, go. You're like missing out big time. Yeah, it's delicious.
I have a question for you.
Yeah.
Okay, so speaking of cookies, have you ever gone to Insomnia Cookies?
In LA?
I don't know if I think they're a national brand. It's like a franchise. I've been to some in Chicago and New York, and there's one here in Tampa. It's a 24-hour cookie place. It's the best thing ever.
There's like an Insomnia cafe where they have cookies, but it's not specifically cookies, so maybe I haven't had them, but I should look
Gotta have.
into them. What's your order? Double chocolate chip? Okay. Well, I'm gonna find it and then I'm gonna send you a message of me eating it.
Make my
Excellent.
day.
Excellent. Okay. Let me think. I had one more. What are your pre-show rituals?
Every show I
Which
make.
ones are you willing to share? Because I know some people have very
That's true.
private pre-show rituals, but if you have anything you're willing to share, please do.
I can share them. It's all good. Some of them people have been like, "That's strange. I'm not going to do that." So I make a playlist for every character that I play, and I usually play that on the way to the theater and while I'm warming up and doing all those things. Every night, when we have warm up time on the stage, I touch every single thing on the stage.
Really? What
I touch.
does that ground you? Like what does it do you feel?
It is a little bit of grounding for me. It is. I'm also like praying while I do that, and I'm just like speaking just like a word of like this is going to be a smooth show. I'm like just kind of like taking a moment. It helps me stay centered, knowing that like I've asked God to like bless the stage. But also like it just makes me feel better knowing like yeah, everything is going to be awesome tonight. Connie's going to know her lines. I'm going to remember to pass that prop to Billy. I'm going to remember that choreography in the second act, whatever it is. Speaking that, there's a verse that says like speak these things as though they were. So I'm always like speaking. This is gonna go how it's supposed to go. I'm not gonna think about the negative. I'm focused on the positive.
I love that so much. So you do speak about it in like future tense, not this is going well. Like people a lot of the time, I think when they're talking about like manifestation and things like that, they're like speak about it in present tense, but you're speaking about it in future tense.
Yeah, it depends on what's happening. Like sometimes I like will do a denial and affirmation in terms of manifestation. So like the deny part will be I release and let go any thoughts that this performance is lacking or this cast is unmanageable or XYZ. And I
This cast is
that
unmanageable.
I will not say names, but I have been in some casts and I've been like, woo, this is a paycheck. And that's fine.
That is such a wonderful way of putting it. Yeah, they're unmanageable.
Yeah, they're unmanageable. It's fine. I bless them, but will I do this again with them? No. And that was a lesson that I had to learn. Always read the script before you accept the role. I also learned that.
Oh, yes. What happened when you didn't do that?
I had friends, that see my work and, hey, I'm doing this project. Will you do it? Yeah, sure. And then I said yes. I've already said yes. And I hadn't read the script. So then I get to the first rehearsal at the table reading. I'm reading the script and I'm like, oh,
regrets?
This is bad. Like, ooh. Like, I just didn't invite people to the show. Like,
got it. Yeah, that makes sense. Have you ever had a performance where you didn't do your pre-show ritual? And if so, what happened?
So I will say, the most recent show I was in, American Stage, we were returning to physical performances, and it was kind of a mishmash cabaret-esque sketch type of thing that we kind of devised together. And because of a series of random occurrences, I just didn't have time or space to do my pre-show ritual in the same ways. I didn't make a playlist because I wasn't playing one character. Like it was a sketch show. I was playing all types of things. And there was no set. It was just a stage. It was a piano. And so I didn't do it. And I did feel off the first night. I will admittedly say I felt off. And I think I had to for that show, I found new forms of ritual. I took a moment because it was an outdoor show. I took a moment to just sit. And we had our backstage area, which wasn't really backstage. We were just off to the side, away from the audience in distant chairs. So I would just sit in my chair and feel the breeze or the swampy air because it's Florida. And I would just breathe. And for the next few days after the opening night show, I made sure that I did that. And that brought me back into the same rhythm as my full indoor theater ritual.
Amazing. Have you ever dried on stage?
like went up, like
yeah,
for.
went up, yeah.
Oh, definitely.
What'd you do?
Uh, hmm. Trying to remember the most recent one.
I feel so much better. I just took like an internal a big exhale because I'm still like traumatized from the one time that I dried. It must have felt like it felt like 5 minutes, but it must have been like 20, 30 seconds maybe. But it feels like an eternity. So I'm just like, oh, if Patrick, who's such a shiny, like he just is a performer, like head to toe. I'm like, okay, if he went up, I feel better.
I have gone up and like jumped to another part and realized that I jumped like a scene.
And what
So
happened?
so we were doing Raisin in the Sun. Actually, this is when I got my equity card. We were doing Raisin in the Sun at American Stage, and I don't think this was a full. I just had to be a preview. Um, we were doing a scene. I was playing Guy. He only has 3 scenes, and we jumped. It was like the scene with Beneath and Guy, and then Mama comes in, and we have this moment where I meet Mama, and we jumped like to another part of like the end of the scene. I was like, oh shit, and like I didn't know what to say because I was like, how am I gonna make this work? I still have because there's something else that happens in the scene where I have to do something for something else to happen, but like we had skipped it, so I was like, how, uh, and so we ended up like going backwards and then repeating the same lines. It was a mess. Like internally in our heads, it was a mess. Externally to the audience, they had no idea.
I feel like usually they don't realize because obviously it's kind of that thing of like when you're looking in the mirror and you're like, oh, I don't really like the way I look today. No one else is going to notice because you're seeing things that, you know, you're just looking at all the time and you're hyper focused. That's so funny because when I went up and it felt like an eternity, people are like, oh, you did? But my
Right.
scene partner, because it was a 2-person play, my scene partner knew, and he was like, I don't know how to get her out of this. I don't. She's just gonna have to figure it out because it was just like a conversation, and I'm just like, I don't know where we're supposed to be going with this. Cool.
If you have ever been a scene partner with me, you know whether it's improv or whether it's a scripted show. If my mind, like in improv, if I don't know what to say, or if we are in rehearsal for a scripted show and I can't remember the line, I will do this thing where I like look at you because I'm trying to think of the line, but then you'll see me tilt my head and my eyes will get like, because I'm like, I don't know what to say, so I hope you're gonna say something.
What do you have?
uh,
How long does that waiting period last?
oh God, it feels like an hour.
Yeah, it does. It's terrifying. It's a big pit in the stomach. Wonderful. I think we've arrived. To the important question.
Okay.
Are you ready?
I am.
Patrick, are you okay?
I am in the process of being okay. Yeah. Yeah, I think I am. I was not. I will admittedly say that. Or I was feeling like I was not. I have to remind myself. At the core of me, everything is all is well. My brain can play tricks on me. That is the thing. This little thing up here in my skull is a just a whirlwind of shit sometimes. I love it. I love my brain.
Yeah, you should.
But yeah, I'm in the process of being okay, and I'm grateful that I have resources like therapy, like going to church, like just like going outside for walks, and staying healthily busy. That allows me to get to a point where I will feel that I am okay.
That's beautiful. And when you say healthily busy, do you have tendencies to keep yourself busy in an unhealthy way?
Oh, definitely. If I
Yeah.
working, shout out to Simone Biles, but like
Oh, yes,
working
that just happened. Yes.
working myself to the point where I think that I can't stop because I am the only one who can do this, or it's going to look bad if I stop, right? That's staying unhealthily busy. Um, Working to the point where I forget to eat, or
Yeah.
I am working so much that I'm like, when am I gonna wash my clothes? I don't know. I'm gonna wear these random clothes that I have left clean, and I'm gonna look really crazy because I'm wearing like a t-shirt.
My bathing suit.
Right, like I'm not taking care of myself. That's unhealthily busy.
Yeah.
Or just working to say I'm working, and just doing something because I want to say that I'm doing some work, and it's really not benefiting me or the people that I'm doing the work for.
Yeah. That's wonderful. Yeah. What was your reaction when you saw when you heard of Simone Biles pulling out of the Olympics?
For her to be at the age that she's at and recognize that and to be that connected to her body, she's obviously in a sport where she needs to be, but to be that connected that she recognizes that for me to operate at the highest function, I need to trust my body, and I don't trust it right now. I don't even trust my body mentally. That is something very mature for a 24-year-old. I think 100%. A 24-year-old of our generation would not have thought that. I know a 24, I wouldn't have realized that.
Yeah.
So I respect that. It's unfortunate it happened on an international stage as the Olympics, but as an American, I don't think of her any less than I did before. Like, she's still amazing.
She's incredible. And honestly, it sucks that she had to pull out and like it got to that point, but I really commend her for doing that, because if you don't take care of yourself, how are you gonna, do the thing? And I saw her giving a talk to her teammates, and she was telling them, like, just because and I'm paraphrasing, but she's like, just because I'm stepping back doesn't mean that you guys are still gonna rock it. You guys have been working your entire lives for this moment. You go. I'm here for you. Right. I'm supporting you. I just need to do this for me. And I just thought that was so mature and so beautiful. And there needs to be more of that, more taking care of yourself. And people are gonna give you shit for that, but too bad.
Yeah, we can go through. Me and you can go through the same situation. We could both get cast in a show, let's say for the same role, gender nonconforming role, right? And have two different experiences.
Mm-hmm.
And that's okay. So I love that she said that, right? Continue to do you, because my experience is different than yours.
Yes.
And so I needed to step back, but you can still keep on going.
Yeah.
And I support you.
That's beautiful. Ugh, love that. Take care of yourself, guys.
Yeah.
Patrick, where can our listeners follow you, and what are you working on next?
That's a great question. You can follow me personally on my Instagram at FamousPatJackson. Rest in peace to Leroy Young, or Lee Young, who was the famous Jet Jackson TV show on Disney Channel.
Oh, yes. I used to watch that all the time.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And you can follow my podcast, The Black Hand Side, at Black Hand Side Pod on Instagram. And my website, patrickajackson.com. Wow. And what am I doing next? I will be here in St. Petersburg. We are doing an event called Return of the Laughs. It's August 20th. It is a day of comedy workshops, laughter things, and then an evening of improv shows with some of your favorite Tampa Bay improvisers. And I'll be in a scripted show soon, I'm sure.
That's wonderful. You guys do follow him, because you are always working on something. You are always healthily busy. And I just think it's inspiring to watch, honestly. So keep doing you. You're awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining me today.
Of course. I love this.
Yay!
I'm excited to support. And it's always cool to see our Chekhov group. Shout out to Chekhov one more time.
Shout out to Chekhov.
To see us to see us doing all types of things since 2011, whenever we went. Whew.
Yes. Wonderful. Thank you so much, Patrick. We will see you guys next time. This podcast was produced by Jason Crow and me, Pamela Portnoy, with music by Jordan Ross Weinhold. You can follow the show on Instagram and Facebook at No One's Okay, and please don't forget to subscribe and leave a review. We love kind reviews. No One's Okay is also on YouTube, so if you want to see our faces, please subscribe to our channel. An extra special thank you goes out to Sean Moore, Claire Palmer, Jackson Palmer, Tiffany Haymoff, and Alexa Marie Anderson. This podcast was recorded at Soundworks Studios. Thank you so much for listening. See you next time.